Welcome to American Christian or Christian American once again. If you please hit that subscribe and the like button to help us build this channel, or help me build this channel, it would be helpful. This is one of those videos that I was just saw more information on it recently, and I had to build it because a lot of my videos are planned ahead, so I don't have to worry about being sick or anything else. I can still get these videos out here for you to see. But at times I'm going to be putting in other videos out, and that's where you get the 0.5, or I'm doing /5 now because the point wasn't really being seen. No one was getting the point. Anyway, I have some stuff to talk about that is just, well, again, it's like what we talk about a lot is just horrific in what people go through in this country. So I'm going to play some clips for you about two black men in Mississippi who were assaulted by 6 white officers. There's 3 clips. I think I'm going to put them all together, and then we're going to talk about them.
Glad you're streaming with us. Well, they beat, handcuffed, and sexually assaulted 2 black men and their sheriff deputies. One of the victims even shot in the mouth. Well, another one of those deputies that all admitted to the crimes in committing these horrifying and dehumanizing attacks on these victims in Mississippi, well, they've been sentenced to years in prison. This one in particular, 27 years in prison now.
So the deputies, this is all taking place in Mississippi, Rankin County, Mississippi. They say they tried to cover it all up after doing it. ABC News' Morgan Norwood joins us now with what happened so far in court today. Brett McAlpin, Morgan, I guess, was sentenced today. Tell us about it.
Yeah, throughout this sentencing phase, we've heard from the judge, but we've also been able to hear from this so-called goon squad, the judge calling them despicable. And during the sentencing phase, again, we've heard the horrific details of that brutal beating and torture. Former Sheriff's Deputy Brett McAlpin sentenced today to close to 27 years in prison. He's one of the last 2 to learn their fate. Not only did he take part in that brutal beating of the men that you just laid out, he also served as the lookout and threatened to kill other officers if they spoke up about this. McAlpin nodded to his family in the courtroom today wearing that orange jumpsuit and offered an apology before the judge read the sentence. He said, quote, "This was all very wrong, going on to say, quote, "I'm really sorry for being a part of something that made law enforcement look so bad." We understand that he didn't directly address the victims in that courtroom.
Reaches $2.5 million settlement with black men invaded and tortured by cops. So this is what the settlement just took place on May 7th, 2025, when these crimes took place in 2023. It's about time they had a settlement, but this is small compared to what they should have gotten. But again, it is Mississippi, so it's the biggest award I believe that has ever happened. But this was horrific. I most certainly hope that you hearing this makes you sick to your stomach. I most certainly hope that it upsets you, that it gets you to think. I hope, and in particular, if you're a white person listening to this, I hope that it makes you upset and uneasy and on the edge of your chair, and you're willing to do something. Because doing nothing is why this stuff happens. He says, well, it's in Mississippi. Well, yes, Mississippi has had a horrific past and present. But guess what? This stuff has gone on throughout this country. Just because you haven't heard about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. People have been brutalized and tortured. We have to ask ourselves, what is the issue here? Because 6 police officers who are supposed to protect and to serve called the goons brutalized these two men. So you got 6 officers, and they stripped these 2 men naked. Why would you do that to anybody? Why? They beat them. They shoved sex toys down their throat. Who knows what else they did to these men? And one man, they took a gun, put it in his mouth, held it there, and then fired it. And the bullet went out his neck. His face was, I don't remember if it's in these resources, but you can look up more about it. His face was numb long after. He didn't hit his spinal cord, luckily, otherwise he would have been killed, or at the very least even a quadriplegic. What kind of quote-unquote police officer does that? You see, we look at police, especially white Americans, as somebody who's supposed to take care of us and protect and to serve, but that hasn't been really the history. Now, I'm not advocating that we get rid of police. We need police in this country to keep law and order. But we have a system behind the police that is a corrupt and evil system. It has been here since pretty much the foundations of the country. We need police, and they're good and bad police. But even the good police can only do with what the law requires them to do. Yeah, they have some leeway in there, but they still have to follow certain laws and arrest people for certain laws. And I'm just beginning to scratch the surface here that a little later on I'm going to go much deeper into our prison systems. Well, where did our police originate from? Well, I'm going to talk about that in a second here. Let's go to that first, and then we'll talk some more. All right, so here we're looking at part of the Constitution of the United States. You can look online and get an electronic copy of the Constitution. You can look up anytime you want to and to read the different parts. We're looking here at the Second Amendment, bearing arms. And people quote the Second Amendment all the time, that I have the right to bear arms. But the Second Amendment is not what you think it is. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon. It's a well-organized militia. What's a militia? It's a military-type force to supplement the regular military, all right? This is what led to the slave patrols. This is what led to the origination of police, because the police forces came from slave patrols. A well-organized militia. It's not talking about everyday people bearing arms. That's been twisted. This is what it was made for. It was made so white Southerners had the right to shoot their slaves, or people to shoot the slaves who escaped, to keep a slave revolt under control. That's what it was for. But you notice it's not talking about individuals here. The right of people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed upon, but you have to take that as part of the whole statement. A well-regulated militia, meaning a group of people that have regulations and things to follow, or whatever their purpose is to be, being necessary to the security of a free state. In other words, this could be adapted to talk about the police because they're organized and they have guns. It also can be adapted to talk about the slave patrol. It really is not talking about individuals. Now, I don't have a problem with people going hunting and those things, but I'm making a point here. That's not what this is about. But people have twisted it to mean what they want to. First of all, they don't want people to understand that the slave patrol was what came out of that. That was the reason for it. They don't want to acknowledge stuff like this. You see, this is not something they want to talk about. But the slave patrol was set up by the Second Amendment. Okay? But, as I'm also going to be, I'll have a link in there for you. Not just because the slave patrol was set up with the Second Amendment, but the slave patrol evolved into our police force. The police force has been the enemy of non-whites in this country and has been a pass for whites in this country to do whatever they wanted to do. Have we changed? Some. Yes. A lot? No. The system still, first of all, there are comments that have been made that the system is broken. No, the system works exactly how it was intended to. The system was set up to keep black people down and other people and to keep whites in power. Arresting black people for many times absolutely nothing. Ending up many times in lynch mobs because the police weren't actually able to enforce things. Because the mobsters actually came in and murdered people. Just the slightest hint of an African American might be guilty of a crime, of murder or something else. And most times that just wasn't true, but they didn't look anywhere else. They decided to not just murder an African American, but to torture them to death. We've already talked about some of that. Burning them alive, chopping their bodies up into pieces, all kinds of other things, cutting off parts of their body parts, cutting off their genitals many times, castrating them without any sedatives, just cutting into them and taking out their testicles and everything else. Black men in this country have been treated absolutely horrific. Our police force came from that. Now, we need to have police in this country, but we need our entire judicial system revamped. Our prison system is set up as a form of slavery. Whether you believe it or not, it is. We'll talk about that some more. In fact, the 13th Amendment makes slavery illegal except in areas of punishment. And that can be interpreted in many ways. So if you just make something illegal, or if you judge somebody unfairly, where whites get much lighter sentences than blacks get much more heavier sentence. Sometimes whites will get probation and a black man will get put into prison for years. And then all their rights are stripped away. In many states, their rights to vote have been stripped away. That's what this is about. This is about stripping the rights away from people. And you have 6 police officers who brutally beat these men and sexually assaulted them, stripping them their clothes. Why were their clothes off? Sounds like buck breaking to me, which is something I haven't gotten to yet. I already have a video I've gotten to it, but you haven't seen it yet, and we'll be talking about that. Humiliation of a black male, the dominant black male, through sexual assault and other ways in order to make them other people afraid. If this man's going to go through this, we all need to be afraid. That's what this is all about, hatred. Now, thank goodness, at least at this point in history, that they were charged and they were put in jail with various varying different sentences. And they did get a $2.5 million settlement. But they should have had a lot more, even though it is the highest judgment that ever came out of Mississippi. These men, that $2.5 million is not worth what they went through. They should have been compensated a lot more, or really, they should have not ever gone through this. But the man who had a bullet fired through his mouth, out his neck, he may have lifelong sensory on his right side of his, I think it was right side of his face, may have lifelong sensory problems because of the damage, the nerve damage that went into that. What can you compensate a person for losing that, or losing their mobility, or having their bodies tortured, or the mental trauma to go through that? What can we compensate a person for that? I'd rather have my healthy body than that. but it at least is something. But still, this is what the police have done. Too many police officers in this country have done. It happens every day to some degree. Every day. Police are pulling over black men, black women. If you're an African American in this country, you better have your hands on the steering wheel. In fact, that's what parents teach their children, to avoid having them dead. White people don't have to worry about that. Black people do. They have to be trained to how to interact with the police, and they just hope that they make it home that day. A routine traffic stop for me can be nervous because I feel kind of bad if I were to I've got a ticket in the past. I felt bad about it. But I didn't feel my life was in danger. Most African Americans, that's what goes through their mind every time they get pulled over. Every time. Really. The sixth most leading cause of death amongst African American men is to be shot by the police. Really. About 1 in 4. Really. Are you upset yet? Or are you one of those that think, good? Because there's plenty of you out there who do feel that way. I hope there's more who start to think about how they feel, and more who are just trying to be neutral, who are starting to think that maybe neutrality doesn't work, because it doesn't. Our prison system needs to be completely revamped, and I'm going to be breaking that down in the future, working on trying to get it put together so I can make it clear. We need to really be upset about this. We need to pray about it. We need to stand together. We need to hold hands with our African American brothers and sisters, Asian brothers and sisters, whatever the group of people. Remember, not a different race. We are all the same race. We are genetically 99.9% identical. It's impossible for us to be a separate race, only because of a social construct saying that we're separate races was made to justify slavery and everything else that's happened. But we are all the same. That's only 0.1% that all of our differences come from. Stop spreading the lie that there are different races. Stop referring to other people as another race. We're all the same race. We may have different ethnicities. We may have different appearances. But even all white people have different appearances. All black people have different appearances from each other. They're different because it's not just about skin color. Every human being may be different. They say there might be a duplicate of us in the world. But even if there's a duplicate, 7 billion people? So people are different, not just because of skin color, but for all different reasons. We are all part of a beautiful masterpiece that God created. And we don't like all the other parts of the masterpiece. We think that we are the only ones that should be there. If you take a canvas and paint it all white, what is it? Nothing. If you paint it all black, what is it? Nothing. If it's all red, it's nothing. It's all the different colors interacting together that make it a masterpiece. How they interact. We are supposed to be a masterpiece. Why are you trying to be the only color on the page? And remember, I'm not white. This is white. This is a shade of brown, a very light shade of brown. Until the next time on American Christian or Christian American.